Support for Mission Nonprofit is provided by Thurston Talk.
Welcome to Mission Nonprofit. I'm Deborah Vinsel. Every month we invite a nonprofit organization to come to the studio to talk about the great work they do. This month is Blood Donor Month, so we welcome to the Mission Nonprofit set Bloodworks Northwest. Stay with us and you can learn more about this great organization. Welcome back. We're pleased to have with us representatives from Bloodworks Northwest. We've got Juan Cotto, the Director of Government Affairs for Bloodworks Northwest, and Dan Fazio, who is a public policy ambassador, volunteer for the Bloodworks organization. So thank you both for being here and for taking time from your schedules. So January, as we mentioned earlier, is Blood Donor Month. And I think folks probably don't often think about the importance of blood donations, and we are fortunate to have a donor setter from Bloodworks Northwest here in Greater Thurston County. So I know that a lot of our viewers may not know the organization and may not know the history. So Juan, could you fill us in a little bit about the history of Bloodworks Northwest?
Absolutely. The medical community at the time of World War II, back in 1945, felt that we needed to have a blood center because of where we were positioned on the Pacific Northwest, and with aircraft being built here in case there was an attack on our community, or to support the soldiers on the Pacific Rim. So they started Bloodworks Northwest in 1945. It has grown, obviously, into the blood center of the Pacific Northwest. It started as Puget Sound Blood Center. In 1916, we purchased the Eugene, Oregon Donor Center, and we changed our name to Bloodworks Northwest to represent. Now we go from Bellingham, Washington to Eugene, Oregon. I believe we serve about 90% of the hospitals between Bellingham and Eugene, with a number of them here in Western Washington. So we have grown into a blood health organization that serves the community. We have a blood research organization down in the East Lake area of Seattle, which has a number of really wonderful scientists that we represent, looking at a variety of different areas to maintain health through the use of different products that are developed through blood. But most importantly, and the one that the public sees and knows about, is the fact that we take blood donations, and those blood donations are used to help help citizens who are going through different types of medical procedures. And the most common medical procedure in any hospital is still blood transfusion. There's one in the United States every 4 minutes. So donating blood, in the words of the late Dr. Beverly Torek-Storb at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, blood is still very important, and blood donations are still very important.
So how many locations are there for donor centers? You mentioned you go from Seattle to Eugene. So how many locations do you have? There
are 10 physical donor centers, and they are in different locations, going all the way through from Bellingham, Washington. Silverdale would be close to here in Thurston County. Obviously, we have one here in Olympia, and then all the way down to Eugene, Oregon. But we also work with a number of different nonprofit organizations and physical places, which allow us to do blood drives, and you see our mobile units there at those locations. They also give up their space. During the pandemic, for example, one of we had the Seattle Mariners were probably the most visible one. They allowed us to set up at the stadium, their T-Mobile Stadium, and we call those pop-up locations. So those organizations allow us to come in, they set up, we create a place to donate blood there, and it allows those groups an opportunity to amplify the message of blood, the importance of blood donation in the community.
And there is a location here in Olympia. Do you know how long that location has been in operation?
I don't know how long that location has been in operation. However, I will tell you it's a very important location for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, from where it's located, we get a lot of traffic from a variety of different places where it's located close to the freeway, and where all these different places converge here. But secondly, obviously, to be in our state's capital is a very important location, which allows us to work with government and organizations. And obviously, during session, we usually have a big blood drive with the legislature, and that helps amplify the message as well.
So the services that you offer, there is obviously the blood donation where people very generously offer up their life source to help others. What other kinds of things does Bloodworks Northwest do?
We have a research facility up in Seattle, which headed by Dr. Jose Lopez, which looks at a variety of different impacts and different ways that we can look at the human system and ways that blood, the diseases can be dealt with. We provide transfusion services at Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center. We provide blood to patients who are going through cancer treatment. We provide platelets, and that's another thing. Of the three components of blood: whole red blood cells, platelets, and plasma. The platelets are the ones where cancer patients, when they're going through chemotherapy, it erodes their platelet supply. So those donations, and they're a little longer than a regular red blood cell donation, but if you think about children who are undergoing different types of cancer treatments, these platelets go in and they're able to help with the healing process that's there. So the research that we've conducted has really impacted a variety of different disciplines of medicine, and continues to do that.
So, I think the need for blood donations, I think people understand, but I also think people are like, well, somebody else is doing that. So can we talk about the need for donors? I mean, where do we stand right now in our blood supply? Is it secure?
The need for blood is constant, and you touched on it. I think it's one of those things where people, there is no synthetic blood. And blood in this case, and when you think about it from the medical perspective, it's medicinal. Blood is a medicine. It's only produced by human beings. And for us, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're doing it. We know that people live incredibly busy lives nowadays, and we see that in a variety of different things, and certainly social media and the regular media promotes this. But we hope, and we are not unlike a lot of things in our community, jury duty, for example, and a variety of different activities that really engage the public good. We believe that blood donation is really important, and we want to promote and amplify that message and make sure that people understand that for us to have a safe and reliable blood supply, we need about 1,000 donors a day to travel to those donor centers. And because of a variety of different things, deferrals and such, not all of them are able to give blood. This morning is a classic example. My wife, who's incredibly healthy, went to give blood this morning, and she was a little short on iron. So, and she was turned down for blood today, and she'll go back and she'll cook in iron pots, which will be exciting. Can't wait to see what we eat in the next couple of weeks. But nevertheless, she will get her iron back up so she can donate. But it's for those reasons, and we always draw back to the train derailment that occurred here back in 2017. The blood that went to those patients, and we saw something very unique. We saw patients lined up around the block to donate blood throughout the state of Washington, but the blood that went to those victims, that was donated 10 days before. So you're making sure, and we don't want to see accidents, but they're called accidents for a reason. They do happen, and we want to make sure that we have a reliable blood supply in case for the next accident that happens.
So you bring up just a question that I have. It's just, so once a pint of blood is donated, how long is it? What is the efficacy? What is the shelf life of a pint of blood?
The shelf life for a pint of blood itself is about 48 days. For platelets, that's different. Platelets last 5 days. Plasma can be frozen, and that can be frozen up to 13 months. But the idea, especially for platelets, which is why we have a constant desire for those, is simply because the shelf life is so short. What happens when the blood is collected is it goes to a treatment facility where we make sure that the blood is tested for 18 different types of varieties of bacteria and diseases. And then once it is processed, it is sent out to the hospitals throughout the Pacific Northwest where it's utilized. And it's utilized at quite a regular rate since the pandemic.
So when somebody comes to donate blood, and I'm just taking this from the conversation, there is a pre-test done, a test done before the actual donation is given, and that looks for?
That looks to check your iron, and it's a very, very simple finger
like a finger stick.
Then there's also just a list of questions that you ask, and we've worked in some cases where we are working on trying to get that done earlier. But for the most part, if you come in and you go through your list of questions, you go through the finger prick and the test, they check your blood pressure, make sure that you're healthy enough to donate. It should take no more than an hour and 15 minutes. Now, if you give platelets, it takes a little bit longer, obviously.
What kinds of things would preclude a donor?
High blood pressure. Which is one I dramatically found out about 3 or 4 years ago, and which was good. I mean, and we always talk to folks about, you learn a little bit about yourself every time. We have the FDA puts out a list of deferrals, and those could be anything. A couple that have been reduced recently. Geez, there was one where if you had a hamburger in the mid 1990s from the mad cow scare, that recently was removed. So there's some different deferrals that they have. If you take an aspirin inadvertently, you think I'm donating blood on Tuesday, and so they have there's one on aspirin, and then they just basically check, if you have a cold, flu, and different things that are affecting your health at the moment. But for the most part, it's just a general questionnaire that you go ahead and fill out and show that you're in good health, and then you can go ahead and donate.
Okay. So I think I want to turn to you a little bit here now, Dan. You are a legislative ambassador, volunteer. How long have you been volunteering?
This is my second year. So started last year, and I had retired. I was the CEO of a nonprofit that worked with farmers and farm workers, and I read an article. I'd always been a person that donated blood, and so I read an article about the fact that our blood supply was really, really cratering due to the pandemic. Had some friends friends of my wife's, who a woman was giving birth. She needed a transfusion. It was like nip and tuck. Do we have blood to do this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that shouldn't be. And so, we have a very, very convenient place right off of Plum and Union to go donate blood. I've always been down there donating, and I called them up. I said, hey, is there anything else we could do? And they said, well, fill out a volunteer card. And they hooked me up with Juan and said, hey, can we do something with the legislature? Because the legislature are the leaders of our community, and they were very interested in figuring out where are we in the blood supply, where are we on post-pandemic relief, and so that's kind of what we've been working on with the legislature, in addition to the blood drive and the other legislative priorities that Juan will tell you about. But really just wanted to kind of give back to the community, and just thought that having a healthy blood supply is really a barometer of where we are as a community, as a state, and as a nation, right? And people are very busy right now, but I think it's something that we all need to do. And at Bloodworks, they say, we'd like to have your time, your money, or your blood. And I think that kind of summarizes it. And the folks down at the Union Street Donation Center there, or for Plum and Union, they'll have you in and out in less than an hour. And so that's a shameless plug for our Olympia Center, and that's where I go to donate.
So at Plum and Union, I'm trying to think what building that's
It's actually just if you go to Union and you go down to East Side. Yeah, and just right at that corner of East Side and Union, you make a right, and there's a small building, but very professional. Then they feed you up with snacks and all kinds of good stuff, and cookies.
Yeah,
and
I've always heard the cookies were great.
The cookies are great, all kinds of juices and things like that, and they have you in and out. If you fill out your pre-donation questionnaire, they have you in and out in under an hour if you're just donating whole blood. And platelets, they're the bomb. But if you just have time to donate blood, they'll have you in and out in an hour. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you're a volunteer helping with legislative things. What other kinds of things could volunteers help with?
Everything. We have volunteers at the blood centers, right?
We do have volunteers at the blood center. We have folks who help come in and register. We have folks who help people when they're done they're making their blood donation, make sure they get their cookie, make sure they get a cup of coffee, and make sure that the process worked out well for them. And we utilize volunteers in a variety of different ways. And our volunteer coordinator and I got together, and I was thinking, geez, wouldn't it be great if we had some help with public policy? And the reason why it's important for the state legislature, it's real simple. I mean, blood is a natural resource, and we had an opportunity to meet with the Director of Natural Resources, our Public Lands Commissioner, Hillary Franz, and she understood that. She really felt that this is a natural resource that, once again, like the things that she oversees, is an important one on a variety of different levels in terms of emergency situations in our community. So for us to be able to look at that and to work with the legislature and come up with different ways, and then also be supported by volunteers throughout the community to help us get that message out is critical to maintaining a safe and reliable blood supply.
So you mentioned a couple of things about legislative actions. Could you give us a little more detail, or what kinds of legislative things are coming up that would affect Bloodworks Northwest?
Well, Juan has a full legislative agenda. The first thing on our legislative agenda is to thank the legislature. They were extremely supportive last year and gave us money for post-pandemic supply of the blood. In the pandemic, the blood supply cratered. It got down to 0 or 1 or 2 days of blood supply, and a healthy blood supply is more like 10 days. And so that was the first thing that the legislature did. We've got an initiative right now with the Department of Licensing, and all the agencies have been very, very fantastic to work with. They're all supportive, as are the legislators, but the legislators are being pulled in a million different directions. But every agency that we've approached, whether it's the Department of Health or the Department of Natural Resources or even the Department of Licensing, we had an idea, or Juan had an idea, wouldn't it be nice to have people's blood type on your driver's license or your state ID card, right? I mean, strictly voluntary, but it's not something where you can snap your fingers and it's done.
Right.
First of all, so we met with the Department of Licensing. They said, look, let's go to the legislature and see if they want to mandate that to us to study that, or they want us to go ahead and just do that. And of course, it takes a little bit of time and it takes some funding, and funding comes from the transportation budget. And as everyone who's been on the highway or taken a ferry recently knows, the transportation budget is extremely strained. So, and the first question, of course, from the Department of Licensing was, is it something that our customers want? And so they have to study that. So we'll be asking that question to the legislature through the Department of Licensing. Is it something that they want the Department of Licensing to study? Of course, it would be all voluntary. You don't have to have your blood type on your driver's license. But we have a feeling at Bloodworks Northwest that people might want to have that little thing right under your heart donor icon on your driver's license. And that says, I'm A positive, you're O positive, and what blood type are you, Deborah?
Okay, so this is interesting. I think I'm B positive, but honestly, it's one of those things that I think so many people go through your life. It's like, I get my blood drawn when I go for a physical or whatever, and I think I'm B positive. But I was going to ask if you do, if when people come, do you do typing? Can people find out? It's like, what am I? So now I know.
You definitely learn your blood typing there. And I just wanted to step back one thing. One of the things that we felt that was really important to promote blood donation in the state of Washington, because as a part of the public good, was we had to work together with the other donor centers in the state of Washington. There's 4 major blood suppliers. Obviously, everyone's familiar with the Red Cross. There's Cascade Regional Blood Services in Pierce County, and there's Vitalant Blood Services, excuse me, in Spokane. So we felt it was really important to make sure that we promoted this as a statewide opportunity. Those 3 organizations have worked with us, and then obviously with the talents that we've received from our famous volunteer ambassador Dan, we've been able to take this information and really promote this within the legislature to get that message out. But we want to say that we have a real unique way that you can learn your blood type, and that's by coming and being a donor.
We'd love to invite you to confirm that B positive.
I need to find out. And I would say this idea about putting your blood type on the driver's license, it makes so much sense, because they do ask, do you want to be an organ donor? Which it's like, well, it would make total sense to have your blood type on your driver's license. In the unlikely event of you being unable to speak for yourself, it's right there.
There's no shortage of ideas that we have at Bloodworks Northwest. Would you like to hear about another one?
Sure, go for it.
Sure. Well, what about teaching kids about the organ that is blood in middle school or high school, about the time that they're eligible to donate blood. Well, that's really, really political, and it takes a lot of time and coordination. And Juan has been working with several groups. We have the Northwest Blood Coalition that we formed, but Juan, you've probably worked with the principals and the school people and the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. Is it something that's feasible because the curriculums are so crowded? And is it something that you want to mandate? Probably not, right? But do you want to have that curriculum available for public schools so that when students reach the age that they can donate blood, which is 16, right?
Yeah. In the state of Washington, the minimum blood donation age is 16. We're still with parental consent. Okay. But we felt it was really important that young children at an early age start to understand the importance of blood donation, understand where blood goes, understand the tissue in their body, understand what happens in an accident, understand if they were to get sick, if they were to need a transfusion in a hospital, what a transfusion is, and those types of terminologies. And we're looking at different ways that we can make sure that that's infused to the education that they're already learning. Last year, the bone marrow group, which we work very closely with, they were able to get curriculum in about bone marrow, which is another thing that people need to look at to make sure that if they have a family member who experiences an illness, would be able to, that needs bone marrow. And the importance of that is, and we just want to make sure that the curriculum is available to learn and get young children to understand, and then by the time they're in high school, they'll have a much better understanding of blood donation, and hopefully they'll donate at their school.
Okay. Other fascinating ideas happening?
Well, I mean, obviously at the legislature, one of the great days is the blood drive day, the blood donor day. And the legislature has been very, very supportive of that, and we're really looking forward. Do we have a date yet, Juan?
We do not have a date yet.
Okay, but, so that's on the calendar for this week, is to get to see what their schedule is and see when you want to do it when everybody's there, but you don't want to do it in the middle of when they're discussing the budget or something like that.
Usually it's at the end of session after they've kind of starting to come back from rest from all the work they've done.
Right. So towards and it's a short session this time. It's 60 days, and boy, they have a lot of work. I don't know if everyone's reading the papers and watching all the initiatives and all the other things that they've got on their plate. But
it kind of feels like a special session's coming.
It does feel like that. But first and foremost, last session, the legislature was extremely generous to the Northwest Blood Coalition, and so first and foremost on our agenda is to get around to every legislature, and everyone voted for it, and thank them for the support. They're very interested and engaged, and they want to know how many. They're always asking, how many days of blood supply do we have, and what's a healthy blood supply? Can you give us the metric? And well, we have this many pints of. It's not that easy to do, but a healthy blood supply would be all blood types, 10 days, and we want to get there. We're not there yet. And
are we close?
Well, we're better this year than we were post-pandemic, right? Thanks to the legislative.
And I think we all know this in our communities. I mean, we have a community that cares about each other. We have a very generous community here certainly throughout the state of Washington. And when people start to hear this message, they respond to it, and that's why we're really excited. And once again, we always want to thank the legislature for promoting our message, and a number of legislators have stepped up, and when they donate blood and they make their little social media posts, those types of things have impact.
So Washington Blood Donor Day, is that just something like is that like a statewide event?
Statewide
event. Okay.
And it's tied to the train derailment. It's December 18th, which was the train derailment in 2017. We wanted to celebrate first responders, and our first responder community, our police officers, our firefighters, our paramedics, they have been incredible in so many different aspects of what they have to do and how professional they are. And we're very, very fortunate, and they also are blood donors, and they step up. So it was a tribute to them. Our police chiefs throughout the state have stepped up, and they donate on those days and help support this. And then we use it to raise awareness. This was an effort by the Northwest Blood Coalition to make sure that we were able to promote blood donation, and it's been a day that's been very effective. And we also wanted to, in December, obviously with people going on traveling and vacations, blood donations start to go down. So this was a way for us to promote blood donation at that time.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes left. We've covered a lot. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation that we haven't touched on?
I personally, I mean, he's always, thanking the legislature. I want to thank Dan for all of his help. Dan, down here certainly in the Thurston County, he's down here in Olympia. He's been such a valuable resource, so knowledgeable about these different issues, and has really helped us push this whole thing forward. So I can only thank him. Obviously, we want to thank the legislature for the help that they've done, and we're very fortunate that we have a a topic where people are open. We don't have to worry about it, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Everyone welcomes us in, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, blood donations, bipartisan issue.
Yeah, I would just like to put in a shameless plug for people to take a think of where you are in your life. See if you've got an hour to see if you can donate blood. I know some people have very busy schedules. Mm-hmm. I know some people have health issues, but it's not that tough a thing to do. It feels great to do it. There's tons of volunteers that'll help you through it. I know some people have a lot of anxiety around, and I've been at blood donation centers when people are very, very anxious, and I tell them, look, just look away, and
Yeah.
the phlebotomist will tell you when to scream.
Yeah. I know. I had a fairly significant phobia against needles for a long, long time. So I've learned to overcome that, but I get it.
I've been at the blood donation center where people are first timers, and we talk them through it. And I got my 5-gallon pin a couple years back, and that was a fantastic milestone for me. But I know that people should take a look at it, and what does it mean to the community when you give your time, and when to make our community a better place.
So you just mentioned the amount that you've donated. That's a lot of pints. How often can somebody give blood?
You can give blood every, I want to say, 52 days. So, and trust me, we have a schedule set up, and we are.
It's day 51. Are you coming tomorrow?
Exactly.
Right.
We make sure that those phone calls get out. Platelets are very unique. Platelets you can donate almost every 7 days. Your body regenerates them that quickly. But certainly we once you come in, you'll be a part of our. You log in, and they give you a code and everything, and our call staff will call you to remind you of the time that you can donate.
And the public relations people at Bloodworks Northwest are fantastic. My wife's a country western fan. We got the email that if you donate now, you can put your name in the hat to go to Vegas and watch a country guy. And I mean, every week they see they know when my 50 days is or whatever. So you'll have another friend that calls you or emails you or texts you, however you want to be communicated with, and they've got working with musicians and sports teams and all the people that make our community great. Bloodworks does and the Northwest Blood Coalition, all the 4 nonprofits do a fantastic job of keeping people in the loop and engaged, and it just feels good. It just really does feel good.
The most important incentive we learn from people, though, is they want to keep their community healthy, and that's the most important thing. So thank you for letting us amplify that message.
You're welcome. I just want to loop back to the issue of platelets, because it's come up a couple of times, and you mentioned that you can donate platelets every 5 days. Do you have folks who are regular platelet donors? Because that seems to me like it's one of those things that that you have people with chronic illnesses who need them, but it would not be something in my brain that it's like I need to go do this again. And it seems like if it's an every 5 day kind of thing or every 6 day kind of thing,
well, it's one of those. It takes a little bit longer. So to get a pint of platelets, the platelets go through your red blood goes through a centrifuge, so they're collected. So it takes about 90 minutes to pull 2 pints. So that's the first thing. But it's one of those things where we work with the donor when they come in. We educate them about what platelets are and the importance of it, and then we make sure that we ask them, when they have an opportunity and they have a little bit more time on their schedule, if it's flexible for them to come in. So it's a process like everything else, and we believe that the more people start to give red blood cells, they learn about the entire process and how this impacts the human system, and they see that platelets are important.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking time to be with us, because we've come to the end of our time. I really appreciate all the information you've provided about Bloodworks Northwest and the importance of blood donations. Please, if you're capable and able, please consider making a blood donation. It's a great way to support our community. Thanks for joining us for this month's edition of Mission Nonprofit. We'll see you next month.